Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the garage, and welcome to one windy evening. So, got home from work, it was still sunlight out, which I haven't had here in the garage for a while. The days are getting longer, thankfully, but anyhow, I said, all right, you know what, tonight's the night, we're gonna forgo working on the 4Link, we're gonna get our factory turbo installed on the truck. So, got everything out, I was all ready to go. And I completely forgot that when I originally put this turbo on, the mounting studs for the turbo to the manifold were on our stainless diesel manifold. So had to get those out, which meant I had to get the exhaust housing off, and those nuts are being a real bugger. Trying not to strip them or round them off. So I finally got that all out. Struggled putting the oil drain back in the block. So I got that in because the oil drain for this is like short, because these turbos, as you can see from the manifold, mount down back here where our second gen swaps right up here. So we have a much shorter oil drain. Well, getting that back in the block really proved to be more, I don't want to say harder, but it was just being a pain. I just couldn't get it to press in. I was trying not to screw up the O-rings and all that. So needless to say, it's gotten very windy and it is just about dark. But me being me, I already know what I want to do. I'm already started. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to press forward and we're going to get our factory turbo installed. So there's a couple differences with this factory turbo compared to our BorgWarner S67. So the first one being obviously the size. Obviously the compressor is much smaller than on that. But that being said, this is also a VGT turbo, which you guys all, well, majority of you know. So this has a variable vane, variable geometry turbo, I guess is the right way to say it. But the exhaust on this can vary in size. I believe the thing just kind of comes in and out like this. I'm not 100% sure. Haven't had one apart before. But anyhow, that's what allows you to have your exhaust braking, your quick spool up, and all that. But that's also part of what makes these factory turbos limited. So the other advantage to our second gen swap is obviously you have your manifold is divided. So you're getting exhaust pulses from either side, helping to spin that turbo at once. And you're also kind of evening out your heat. Whereas here, the back cylinders are going to get more heat to them. So anyway, guys, we're going to press forward. Like I said, it's windy, but oh well. In that engine compartment, it shouldn't be as bad, I hope. So we're going to get this thing installed. What we're going to do is we're going to get our studs placed on the turbo and on the exhaust manifold, because I think it's 2 and 2. They actually thread in to the mounting flange itself. And I'm actually going to mount the exhaust housing because this turbo is actually heavier. And I remember when I was taking them out before, it seemed easier to drop it. But that's my plan now. As we put the studs in, I might say, screw it. You know what? Now that I say that, we have exhaust studs now rather than just the bolts for this. So what I'll probably do is I'll put it together and we'll put a couple of our studs in, like when we were taking it off the other night, and we'll just slide the whole assembly right on there. And if it's too heavy, we'll have to take it back apart. So anyway, let's get to putting this thing in. So our factory turbo is back in place. Really, putting that thing in with the turbo manifold connected it's tight. It's very hard to do by yourself. I actually end up climbing up here in the fender to try and get it, and it barely fits between, you know, like the AC lines and all that. But we got it in. I had to take the 2 studs that I put in out in order to get it, and then I got it close, and I was able to start a stud up here at number 1 cylinder, and then went back further with a screwdriver, lifted the whole thing up, put another stud in, so on and so forth. Put all our gaskets in, everything's torqued down and all that. So really, torquing down the exhaust manifold itself is way easier than like the stainless manifold we have. All the bolts have the little spacers, and you can get to them just with a straight little short extension and a deep well socket. Very easy. Yes, and also on the turbo, when I was putting it together, there's 3 studs in the turbo, and there's 1 stud in the exhaust housing, so you can't screw it up. Also, there's a little like elbow off the back of the turbo on the exhaust housing that has a dowel, so that you can set before you put it in, really making it easy to do. So we have our coolant lines, our oil lines, our boost tube, and our oil drain. Our oil drain, yeah, I'm not looking forward to this. This is going to be a pain. I know it. It's tight down there. I'm not looking forward to crawling under this and doing that. But we got to do it. So you can't have the oil just draining all over. Well, we could have it draining all over the place, but that just wouldn't be good. So we'll take care of that. So I have to order new banjo washers for our cooler line. So one comes out of the turbo here, goes right here. There's another one down below somewhere, and then that goes into somewhere over here. I can't remember. It's been 4 years, 5 years since I've done this. Well, I did the reverse, but anyhow, we'll get all this together. I guess I'll attack that oil drain first, because that's the easiest thing to forget on this. So we'll get to that, and I'm not even going to try and get the camera in there. It's going to be a pain as it is. So we got everything in. The oil drain, like I said, was going to be a pain. Well, if you guys remember, I said earlier I put it in the block already. Well, I could not get the bolts to line up because that thing's like semi-rigid. And I'll show you the one that we pulled out from the S400. It's the same design except for this is shorter, but couldn't get it. So I pulled it out of the block, straightened it up, got the bolts started, and then got it in the block. And then it was really hard to get in. So what I did was I kind of put a pipe wrench on it, tightened it around the slimmer part of the neck because it kind of widens before the part where the O-rings are that go into the block. Did that, and then I hit the pipe wrench with a hammer, and I was able to get the 2 O-rings in the block and seated. But it was a bear. And then trying to get the gasket on while you're doing that, when I pulled it out of the block, that's the best thing I could have done. So anyhow, got our turbo in, and the electronics are hooked up. There's 2 connectors on there. They're hooked back up to the truck, so we'll have our full VGT function. Our boost tube is in. The boost tube, I couldn't get it, and then finally I couldn't get it, pulled it back out to do the hook up the wires for the turbo because I was worried I couldn't get to them. Went to put it in, and it was slating me the whole first time. The second time it just slid right in. I can't explain why, but it's just like it's size for size. Got a little heat shield on our exhaust manifold, and then we got this little tube coming out of the exhaust that I don't know what it does. It just blocks that off. And now that I see that and I think about it, I gotta find an 1/8" plug because at one point we had an EGT probe in there. So I gotta block that off, and I'll get with you guys in the garage because I don't know if you can hear anything because of all the wind noise. So guys, we got our factory turbo back on the truck. It's been a long time since that thing's been on there. Very low miles on that turbo. But anyhow, I plugged that hole where our EGT probe was, and it kind of reminded me one time looking at a truck in a dealership years ago. It was a trade-in truck. I was looking at it over. It's like an 06, 07 truck. And I remember seeing a grease fitting in like the same kind of spot and thinking, oh yeah, somebody had an EGT probe in this thing at one point. Just kind of funny that it reminded me of that. I remember looking at that truck. It was way before I could ever afford it, but yeah, just it's funny how that kind of stuff works. Also, if you guys noticed, we have two pretty massive holes in the top of the exhaust manifold. We're gonna have to get something to cover those things up. We got a little something to cover those up, don't you worry. But anyhow, everything went okay for the most part. That oil drain was what a pain in the butt, but at that and getting that thing in there all as one piece, if I would have pulled the battery out, it would have made it a little easier, have a little more wiggle room, but it's just like that thing's just got to go in just right and kind of lay over. But we got it in. It wasn't too terribly hard, but I'm not going to say I would necessarily recommend it. Also, we got a little battered in there. Some of that sheet metal heat guarding, little heat shields. Those things are like razors. I mean, it's just terrible. Why they don't just crimp the ends over so you got a smooth rolled edge, I don't know. Probably cost. But anyhow, factory turbo's on. Like I said, you guys will see the end of my plan here shortly. Like I said, I do have a game plan. It might not make sense to you right now, but eventually it will. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Get out in your garage. Get the wrenching on your truck.